My name is Theo Sands, and I work within the Independent Evaluation Department of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And today I am absolutely delighted to welcome my colleague, Olga Minska, who's going to share some of her findings on how the EBRD's urban environment investments have delivered sustainability and climate resilience. So just on format, this is going to be a short 10 to 15-minute presentation from Olga, followed by a Q&A session, during which we will have both some questions which I've concocted to test Olga, but also we would love some questions from the audience, and so I'll be keeping a close eye on the Zoom chat. And so if you have any questions, please submit them there, and we can interrogate Olga at the end. And so I think Olga's just getting her presentation up on the screen. Fantastic, I can see it now. And with that, Olga, if you're ready, I will hand over to you.
Okay, cool. So thank you everyone for joining this conversation today. So we prepared a very short kind of snippets of the evaluation evidence that we gathered in the last couple of years that answer some of the pertinent questions related of the building sustainability and climate resilience at the level of the municipalities and local governments. And I don't know, Theo, do you want to prompt with a question, or how do you want to?
So Olga, my understanding was that you were going to give a short presentation of this, and then we're gonna interrogate you with questions.
Okay, cool. So yes, I wanted to let you know that we had in terms of the evidence that we collected over the last time, we came to the certain conclusions in terms of the tools and instruments that might be working best for the local and municipal level. And from the experience of EBRD, the financier that mostly funds private sector investments, however, also works with many municipalities through its program called Green Cities. There is a compelling evidence to show that programmatic approach is indeed the one that is bringing best the elements of investment and also policy decision making. So basically, quite often municipalities have their own strategies, sometimes action plans, and also they have investment projects that can go quite separate. And the beauty of the middle layer of it, which in the Green Cities program is called Green City Action Plan, that actually it combines two of those. And having horizontal approach to this means that the bank, which has a number of impact elements, which include good governance standards, inclusion, green, and some other parameters, can integrate those in the program. And it means all projects and programs that are connected in various municipalities, and at the moment there are more than 50 participants, can automatically have those elements integrated. So for example, in the last year, the novelty was to integrate the digital preparedness for the cities, where elements related to the remote sensoring or cybersecurity or other elements can be easily integrated as potential areas for the action plan. Another really great is ability to prioritize and select the projects that are really pertinent. And also quite often what we hear from our bankers especially is that the work that is being done for the preparation of the action plan sometimes substitutes substantial parts of the due diligence that is needed to be done for the investment projects. So again, having pragmatic approach where the things are pulled along the certain challenges and priorities allows to have a more streamlined approach and to come to the very kind of up-to-date list of the things that needs to be taken care of. There is also the approach for the program is good from the point of view of converting into the financial instruments rather than having project by project, because the banks like EBRD had municipality investment projects for decades, but having it together means that as an action plan, it can be converted into the matrix which would allow to develop financial products, for example, sustainability-linked bond or sustainability-linked loan, where the certain characteristics of the green and sustainability progress could be connected for their financial results. And the things that are also improving the readiness of the bank, similar to EBRD, to deliver most impactful project is presence on the ground. So there is a very strong decentralized network of offices of EBRD, which means that the understanding of the political economic context on the ground is very good. Although in our evaluation, sometimes we find that in certain countries where especially the systems are more centralized, so there is less autonomy for cities to make fiscal and other decisions. The terms and conditions that are integrated in investment projects are not adequate to the speed of the decision making, and therefore there should be a kind of better integration of the local context, and especially decision making one, into taking the decisions. What we also had in a number of our evaluations is that each new strategy which bank approves in the area of green has to be mindful of the most recent developments and changes, both into the kind of the challenges that are enhancing, but also the opportunities, both technological, technical, and digital, that we can offer. But also, the bank needs to up its game in terms of the in-house expertise that is present. So quite often, the evidence that we gather help to build a certain speciality in the bank. For example, when we did an evaluation of the decarbonization of the buildings, it led to the banks taking more serious steps in terms of the building up its team of the green buildings expertise and hub that exist. But also there is an interesting illustration on this slide, and we had the evaluation of the cluster of projects where actually it was Theo who came with this.
I think we lost Olga at an opportune moment, just when she's talking about a graph which I designed, so I can very easily step in. So what this graph was showing was the relationship. Ah, Olga, you're back again. We lost you for a moment.
Was it disappearing?
Your connection dropped for a second there, yes.
Okay, I'm really sorry. I'm joining you from Vilnius, from one of the green cities in Lithuania, and I'm not sure whether this is the reason why my connection is not stable. But yes, I was trying to explain that on this graph, there is a direct correlation between the amount of green investment by EBRD and the amount of CO2 emissions. And as you can see, actually, the most expensive projects do not necessarily lead to the greatest number of CO2 reductions. And one of the recommendations we had, which is currently being implemented, is actually improving the modeling and the explanation and the reasoning for the approval documents, so that the projects that are being approved are indeed most impactful for and relevant for the context in which it's been delivered, whether it's the least developed countries or the countries that are more advanced on their green transition path. And what is also important to underline here, that over the recent years, again, the findings we had initially, but what we can see changing in the municipality, that outside the municipal infrastructure, which was usually the usual path where the investments aligned investments would be taking place, there is a greater expansion into other sectors, specifically into energy. So there are more solutions that are being offered to the municipality in terms of integrating renewables into the energy balance, and also ensuring that there is a great impact in terms of the quality of air and quality of water through the solutions. The thing that we anticipated, but highlighted in some of our reports, is also that quite often large projects or large programmatic approach can have quite universal, internationally improved standards, and sometimes there is a lack of localization at the local level, despite having a local expertise. And what was advised, and we can see it being implemented in some context, is that there is a greater local capacity building and greater understanding of the local context, so that things are not lost in translation, because sometimes it's a double one. First you do from English to local language, and then from local language to English. And last thing that I wanted to underline in terms of the elements of the the work that EBRD does at the local level, specifically at municipalities, is that, of course, we would like to see the recommendations and the evidence from evaluation report being also useful and used by the municipalities. And there is a demand for that because obviously there is a more need for evidence-based and data-based information and decision-making. Many cities are taking commitments in terms of their taking part into the taking commitments on reporting, and for that they need good data quality. So again, some of the evaluations we had, they noted that capacities for monitoring and reporting and also evaluating it means making a judgment in terms of the certain trend are not as strong. And currently there are some efforts to enhance the capabilities of municipalities to manage their data and to use it as evidence for decision making. And what we also see that especially in the large networks like green cities, there is a big appetite for horizontal exchange of information. So it means that cities are really keen to meet each other, sometimes more advanced, but sometimes cities that are on the same stage of the green transition, where colleagues can go and visit each other's projects and they can understand whether they have the same challenges and specific solutions that potentially exist, either through the local businesses or sometimes through the local analytical and research institutions. And it actually inspires them to apply similar solutions and tools in their own context. So probably I'll stop here, and Theo, over to you.
Great, thank you, Olga. That's fantastic, and I personally learned a lot. Even though I've been part of some of these evaluations, I still learned a lot listening to you, which shows the level of expertise involved. So I thought I would take advantage of my position as the moderator and ask the first question, which is what your perspective was on the different financial instruments that the EBRD has employed in supporting sustainability and climate resilience in cities, and whether the EBRD has, been exploring either blended finance facilities or any innovative financial structures in order to deliver support in this area.
Thank you. It's a very good question, and of course there is a variety of instruments, and it also depends on the country and on the cities where the work is being done. Because as I mentioned earlier, different countries have a different governance model. Some of them have more decentralized approach, so the municipalities have more powers to take decisions and also to borrow money and to raise funds through for example, issuing green bond or sustainability-linked bonds. Others have less so. Therefore, in situations where you either have strongly advanced kind of capital and financial markets situation, like in the country where I'm currently in Lithuania, there is opportunity to design solutions that would be taking advantage of things like covered bonds or securitization, when you use the assets which are already on the go in terms of the energy efficiency improvements in the public buildings or the multi-apartment buildings. And so you have like refilling funds of money through this financial instruments that also can be sold to the private sector investors. And there are other situations where cities and countries require a greater degree of concessionality. So that's why you need grants, you need to have investment grants, or you need some other incentives. And of course, the availability of instruments is kind of a simple loan, and quite often it goes to if the country is quite centralized, so it should be sovereign guaranteed loan. And then, of course, it is about integrating building capacity and having this project implementation capacity in the loan that is essential. But again, there have been some modalities where when TC is not available up front and cities are waiting for the loan to be disbursed without having capacity first, there is an issue. So it's kind of a bit of a vicious circle. I'll stop here, Theo.
Great, thank you. And we have some questions coming in on the chat. So one question from Fatima Hafsa, asking about the geographic scope of the work that you've been conducting and whether the results that you found are generally applicable in different global contexts, or if you think that actually they are more relevant and more pertinent to specific parts of the world, and whether you see sort of regional and geographic differences.
Thank you so much. It's a very good question. So EBRD is active in more than 40 economies, and it's stretching from Central Asia, Mongolia, down to to Egypt, Jordan, and also countries of Western Balkans and Eastern and Central Europe. So geography is quite wide, and we're also expanding now into countries of Sub-Saharan Africa, although we do not have any green cities program there. So the contexts are very different, and some countries, as I say, they're quite decentralized. Others are very centralized. So there are different governance contexts. There is different fiscal context. There is a different structuring of the loan in terms of whether it's sovereign or municipal, or whether it's almost quasi-private. So I would imagine that replicability is quite high because it is from a quite wide range of cities. I think it's more than 50 cities currently taking part in Green Cities program. I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, and I think it answers another question too around the external validity of some of these findings, and the extent to which some of it was local context specific versus something that could be generalized.
I maybe can add also, because the methodology for the Green Cities approach in general, it was actually a joint collaboration with a colleague from OECD and ICLEI. So it wasn't in-house EBRD only methodology. So it also has, through this, carries a great degree of replicability because it adheres to the international standards in the sustainable urban development.
Yeah, and sticking on cities then as the sort of current focus, we had a question from Alpa Dinsa on the legal and regulatory changes needed to scale municipal decarbonisation, and he was wondering what you saw in terms of the one sort of really pivotal reform that we need at the outset to unlock, in combination with MDB financing, rapid city level uptake of municipal decarbonisation strategies.
Really good question, and I think it depends in what context you are. So as I say, currently I'm in Lithuania, where in the last 5 years there have been substantial reforms at the capital markets level, including at the regional one. So there is a concerted effort of the government, and 3 governments actually, to build up capital markets regulatory and legal environment in a way that would allow issuing new instruments, including those that would benefit green urban financing. So I would say that this would be important. On the other hand, in other contexts where the capital market development probably is not so advanced, the utilization of programmatic approach like Green Cities, where you have a baseline indicators and also targets, is a kind of easy path towards developing the regulatory and legal framework for green bonds and sustainability linked bonds, obviously because SLBs have more flexibility. You just need a target. This shouldn't be like project specific finance, and the same goes about sustainability linked loans, because there you can operate with 2 or 3 indicators, and if you miss them, then obviously you need to pay higher interest at the end. I hope it answers.
Yeah, I mean it definitely answered for me. And then continuing with this, I think there's lots of questions in the chat on cities and how cities can strengthen their climate action, climate resilience plans, and how they can embed the use of evaluation evidence in strengthening these climate adaptation plans going forward. What climate resilience plans going forward? What have you seen as critical in terms of both general factors which help cities strengthen how they can use climate resilience plans effectively, but also specifically how they can integrate evaluation evidence to strengthen and improve their decision making?
It's a very good question. Thank you. I think what is important when we open evaluation report, and of course none of them is the same and none of them are short and probably actionable, but we in IVD do try to deliver short and actionable recommendations, that it's possible to look what actually didn't work. what lessons or what model was implemented in certain standards. And in a way, because quite often we operate with case studies or in-depth deep dives, where we describe the context and we describe what were the legal or regulatory changes. And then to the stakeholders, when they read it, they can actually reflect on that actually didn't work, and we have a similar situation. But on the other hand, in terms of the evaluation influencing, I think it's important also to look at the mother institutions. So in our case, it's EBRD, because they have the relations with the city. I'm talking here specifically about Green Cities program, where there are commitments on the part of the municipal partners. And of course, the Green City Action Plan are their own documents of municipality. It's not something that EBRD comes and enforces on someone. It goes through the democratic process of development, deliberation with CSOs, business associations, and then it's voted, and it's then ingested into the decision-making and kind of constitutional process of municipality. So then it's about EBRD or similar financiers, because actions and priorities from GCAP can be delivered through the financial projects by other financiers, private, semi-private, other MDBs. They would have that there is support still available from EBRD and others in terms of the implementation, because quite often because but what happened next, and actually because of 10 years there are second generation Green City Action Plans, so there is already reflection what worked, what didn't work in the same city for the several periods. So it's kind of cities are able, and also through our evaluations, and there are other organizations, actually, for example, Bank Watch, who issue their own evaluation of green cities action in specific cities. And these independent reviews are actually helpful for the specific cities to develop the actions for the future.
And we also, that links to a couple of questions in the chat we've had on the methodological approach we take in our evaluations in these areas. So would you mind expanding a little bit on the methodological approach? And if you can, actually, I think it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective on how the approach that we take as an MDB may differ from an organization like Bankwatch when they're doing their independent reviews.
Yeah, so I should say that in this specific presentation, I was bringing together insights from several.
Olga, I think we've lost you again for a moment, but I can go on and just...
I hope you can see my screen with the QR code as well to the report, which has... Did it disappear? Am I back?
You're back.
Hello? I'm back. Can you hear me? I do apologize. Connection seems to be not perfect, but I wanted to say that this specific evaluation on the decarbonization of building, we took an approach where we did assurance and validation of the actual buildings for each project. So we selected 13 projects in 5 different countries. We hired highly qualified experts, engineers in green buildings, who also have licenses to do assessments according to the all 3 or even 4 green building certification schemes. And with the help of these consultants, engineers, we visited each project. We took a sample of several buildings, and we actually requested all the information, pre-rehabilitation, after rehabilitation of building, to compare the actual energy and CO2 emissions and also water use, etc. So it was very much assurance and validation on the site approach, which obviously you cannot afford in programmatic approach in the which we did in the green cities. And there the approach is usually through case study, deep dives, where we go into the specific city and we reflect on the governance specificity of it. We reflect on the involvement of the different stakeholders in the process of preparation of Green City Action Plan. We also looked at the investment projects and how aligned they are and how well known they are to the stakeholders beyond, for example, municipal transport company or municipal water company. And then we make reflections on the actual results of the projects, which I must say, for the Green Cities evaluation, which we've done a couple of years ago, the results were not that many results were there because municipal projects tend to take longer time in the infrastructure. But we are hoping, I think in 2 years' time, we are due to do a next stage of Green Cities program evaluation, where we will be looking exactly at the results of the projects. And of course, it will be again a case study approach, because it just won't be plausible to do the blank white detailed review of all 52 green cities and associated projects, which are more than 150. So that would be my answer.
And while you were speaking just then, I saw another question come through, which very much sort of fit with what you were saying around checking with stakeholders around the extent to which these were participatory and the extent with which the investments prioritized within Green City Action Plans were matching stakeholder priorities and interests. So was something that you were looking at the extent to which these city action plans were participatory in nature, and to which they were sort of bottom up rather than top down? And did that come across as a factor in their successful uptake when comparing different municipalities?
It's a very good question, and indeed the approach for the preparation of GCAP is very participatory. And the question is, of course, at which stage EBRD Green Cities program enters the city, whether there already existing dialogue and active participation from the civil society, environmental organizations, business associations, sometimes specific businesses. So when it was non-existent, and actually GCAP prompted this dialogue to appear and to be there, obviously it takes long time, and it was sometimes difficult, but all stakeholders, regardless, because we looked at the different cities with a different degree of participatory ex ante, right? And even those where the dialogue wasn't quite productive before Green City became one of the action plans, they all noted very positive dynamics in relationships and understanding. So for many of them, at least unknown became known. But in the cities where the dialogue was already there, where the interaction actually, it helped to understand and probably to build even like joint projects where some of the civil society organization or green environmental organization, they could actually take part in some of the elements of the investment projects, for example, on the urban mobility. Yes.
Great, fantastic. Well, look, we're coming to the end of our time, but Olga, I wanted to give you an opportunity for any final calls to action, advice to policymakers and decision makers, and anything you would like to be the single key takeaway in terms of the evaluative evidence you've gathered on strengthening sustainability and resilience in cities through the EBRD's investments.
Well, I'm not sure whether I will be preaching to the converted here, because potentially the people who gathered around the screen are either evaluators or people who care about evaluation at least a little bit. But I would say the main approach is like not to look at the evaluation as something, punitive or something as a review and you need to report, but actually look at it as an opportunity to have a different perspective and panorama and come with an open mind and say, okay, why don't we learn something from it? And I think this would be the best example, best advice, not only to our own institution, EBRD and MDP, but also to the municipalities and local stakeholders.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Olga. Thank you to all of our attendees for the great questions. Have a wonderful rest of the day in Belém, in the UK, in DC, wherever you are in the world. And I hope this presentation was as enlightening to you as it was to me. Thank you all. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. And good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.